The sun hung low over the dusty town square, casting long shadows across the gathered crowd. Cordelia Nash stood bound to a wooden post, rough hemp rope biting into her wrists. Her dress, once a soft green, was now torn and stained with dirt. She didn't scream or beg, though the accusations of witchcraft still echoed in her ears. Instead, she held her chin high, her hazel eyes scanning the faces of the townsfolk she'd served for 3 years. She'd healed their children, delivered their babies, and eased their fevers, yet here they were, baying for her blood. Disappointment, not fear, weighed heavy in her chest. Mayor Gideon Pratt stood before her, clutching a crumpled paper. His voice boomed, thin with false authority. Cordelia Nash, you stand accused of practicing dark arts, cursing livestock, and bringing death to this town through unholy means. The words were absurd, almost laughable, but her throat was raw from hours of pleading her innocence. 3 deaths in a week. Old Henrik's weak heart, Sarah's premature baby, and drunk Pete's fall down a well, had sparked panic in this hardscrabble town. Fear made them desperate for a scapegoat, and Cordelia, the solitary woman with her herbs and remedies, was an easy mark. The crowd pressed closer, their faces twisted with righteous fury. Mrs. Henderson, whose fever Cordelia had broken last month, spat at her feet. Young Tommy Briggs, whose arm she'd set, hurled a stone that struck her shoulder. Each betrayal cut deeper than the rope against her skin. Burn the witch, a voice shouted. Hang her, another screamed. Pratt raised a hand for silence. Death by hanging, to be carried out immediately. Cordelia closed her eyes, feeling the post's rough grain against her back. She thought of her grandmother's teachings, plants to stop bleeding, teas to ease labor, poultices to draw out infection. All that knowledge, passed down through generations, would die with her because fear had turned neighbors into monsters. Preacher William stepped forward, noose in hand, his weathered face flickering with doubt as their eyes met. But the mob's hunger drowned his hesitation. Any last words, witch? Pratt demanded. Cordelia opened her mouth, a final plea for reason forming, when the thunder of hooves shattered the moment. Dust swirled at the town's edge as a lone rider charged toward the square. The crowd turned, squinting into the afternoon sun, unaware that this stranger carried secrets darker than any they'd imagined. The rider burst into the square, his black horse rearing as he yanked the reins. Townsfolk scrambled back as he dismounted, his long coat dusty from travel, his face shadowed beneath a wide-brimmed hat. 2 revolvers hung low on his hips, and his every step carried the quiet menace of a man who'd seen more violence than this town could fathom. What's the celebration? His voice was calm, like still water before a flood. Pratt straightened his vest, feigning authority. Nothing that concerns you, stranger. We're handling local justice. The man's eyes swept the scene, the post, the rope, Cordelia's bound form. Something shifted in his expression, a recognition of innocence in her unyielding stance. Local justice, he repeated, tasting the bitterness of the words. And what crime did she commit? Witchcraft. Mrs. Henderson shrieked. She killed 3 people with her devil magic. Poisoned them with her herbs. Tommy Briggs added. The stranger nodded thoughtfully. Herbs. So she's a healer. She's an abomination. Preacher William clutched his Bible. The Lord commands we suffer not a witch to live. A cold flicker passed through the stranger's eyes. The Lord also commands mercy, if I recall. He stepped toward Cordelia, and the crowd parted instinctively, unnerved by his presence. Not evil, but dangerous, like a loaded gun in uncertain hands. What's your name? He asked her quietly. Cordelia Nash, she answered, her voice steadier than she felt. Did you kill those people, Miss Nash? She met his gaze. No. I tried to save them. He studied her, then turned to the crowd. Seems you're about to murder an innocent woman. Pratt's face reddened. This is none of your concern, mister. Can't do that. The stranger's hand drifted toward his revolver. I've got a problem with watching innocent people die. Call it a flaw. The crowd stirred, some reaching for weapons, but his calm lethality held them at bay. "You defend a witch?" Preacher William demanded. "I defend anyone from a mob," he replied, his voice unwavering. "Question is, are you willing to kill 2 people today instead of 1? The air grew thick with tension. Pratt, sensing his authority slipping, called out, "Boys, we got ourselves a problem." 6 ranch hands stepped forward, hands on their guns, decent shots, but not gunfighters. The stranger, unfazed, assessed them with a predator's precision. "Mayor Pratt," he said conversationally, "you sure you want this? Once guns come out, people die, and you won't like who. You're outnumbered 6 to 1, Pratt sneered, his voice trembling. 7 to 1, the stranger corrected, his mouth twitching. You're forgetting yourself. Cordelia's wrists burned as she strained against the ropes. This man was ready to die for her, and she didn't even know his name. "Please," she whispered, "don't get killed for me." He glanced back, and for a moment, his hard mask slipped, revealing a deep, broken pain. "Ma'am, I've been looking for a good reason to die for a long time. This'll do." "What's your name?" she asked urgently. "Thorn Blackwood." The name rippled through the crowd. Several paled, and one ranch hand stepped back. "Blackwood?" Preacher William's voice cracked. "The Blackwood from Colorado?" Thorn's expression hardened. "Depends what you heard about Colorado." "He killed 8 men in Deadwood," a ranch hand whispered. 8 in one fight. The crowd's mood shifted. They'd come for a witch's execution. Now they faced a legend whose reputation was a shadow darker than their fears. Pratt, cornered by his own pride, couldn't back down. "I don't care if you're the devil himself," he declared. "We have laws, and justice will be served." Thorn nodded, accepting the inevitable. "Let's get this over with." His hands dropped to his guns, and the world held its breath, but before anyone could draw, a new voice sliced through the tension. "Stop!" Dr. Edmund Hayes pushed through the crowd, his medical bag trembling in his hands. "For God's sake, stop! She's not a witch." Every eye turned to the disheveled doctor, sweat beading on his forehead. "She didn't kill anyone," he said, voice breaking. "I did." Silence fell like a guillotine. Thorn kept his hands near his guns, wary of where this confession might lead. Pratt's face twisted with confusion. "What are you talking about, Edmund?" Hayes produced a small brown bottle, hands shaking. "Laudanum. I've been taking it for my back pain since a fall last winter. It got worse, and I needed more. I wasn't thinking clearly. Mixed the doses wrong. Henrik, Sarah's baby, Pete, they came to me when Cordelia's herbs weren't enough. I gave them overdoses. Cordelia felt the ropes loosen as someone cut her free. She rubbed her wrists, stunned. Why didn't you say something sooner? Thorn asked, his voice low and dangerous. Hayes met his gaze, hollow with guilt. I'm a coward. When they started talking witchcraft, blaming Cordelia, I told myself it was better to let them believe it than admit what I'd done. You were going to let them kill her, Thorn said flatly. I tried to stop it, Hayes whispered. I spoke against it, but quietly. You thought wrong. Thorn's hand lingered on his gun, and for a moment, it seemed Hayes might not survive the day. The crowd stood frozen, grappling with the truth. They'd been ready to hang an innocent woman, and their trusted doctor was the real killer, undone by his own addiction. Pratt, ever the politician, seized the moment. Well, then, Dr. Hayes will face charges. Cordelia's voice cut through, sharp as a blade. He confessed. He saved my life by telling the truth when he could have stayed silent. That took more courage than any of you showed today. The crowd shuffled, shame replacing their fervor. They'd been complicit in nearly murdering her, driven by fear and superstition. Cordelia faced them, her voice steady. Keep your apologies. I've learned what kind of people I've been helping. Hayes approached, clutching the laudanum bottle. Cordelia, I can never make this right, but if there's anything, get help, she said, meeting his eyes. Real help. Your clouded judgment could kill again, and there won't always be a scapegoat. Thorne watched her, impressed by her clarity and strength. Miss Nash, he said, I'd be honored to escort you out of town. A woman alone faces dangers. His tone hinted at more than bandits. She caught hostile glances from the crowd, Mrs. Henderson whispering, Tommy Briggs spitting in the dirt. Fear didn't vanish with truth, it festered. Why? She asked quietly. Forgiveness doesn't erase fear, Thorne murmured. These people were ready to burn you. That kind of fear finds new targets. Before she could respond, another rider galloped into the square, his badge glinting. Deputy Marshal Crawford dismounted, striding toward Thorne. Thorne Blackwood, you're under arrest for the murder of Judge Harrison in Colorado. The crowd gasped, their savior now a wanted killer. Thorne didn't flinch, only nodded. You've been hunting me for what, 6 months? 7, Crawford replied, hand on his gun. Since Harrison was found with 3 bullets in his chest. Witnesses saw you leave his office. Thorne admitted being there but claimed Harrison was alive when he left. Crawford pulled out papers. Harrison's last case freed Samuel Garrett, wrongly imprisoned for 5 years. The real killer bribed officials, destroyed evidence. Thorne's voice grew heavy. Samuel Garrett was my brother. His wife died while he was locked up. His daughter lost fingers in a factory. Harrison's mistake destroyed my family. Cordelia saw the pain in Thorne's eyes, a man carrying a burden too heavy to bear. He'd been ready to die for her because he was already a dead man walking, haunted by his past. That if you were Cordelia, would you forgive this town and stay to rebuild, or leave forever? Her choice would shape not just her future, but the soul of this town. And as Thorne's secrets unraveled, she realized the danger was far from over.